I want you and that young man to tie that knot. I'm gonna pray for you. And I want you to hold on to God's unchanging hand, because he helped Joshua fight the battle of Jericho.
It's the
Yes. He helped Daniel get out the lion's den. He helped Gilligan get off the
Let
island.
me get straight to the business. Got them lions in the building. Why you lying to the children? Why you lying to the children? RIGHTEOUS. Man, you know I've been to bed. Man, they know they no contest. Yahuwah, he do the bless. We will not see you tomorrow. Cause you cannot go to thought. All the sons and all the daughters. Standing all with big manodas. But my son, he made me Taurus. On that line, I'm still a Taurus. Karate kicking Chuck Norris, 4-5 on my waist. If he started, will not hesitate to get retarded. Oh lordy, he ain't got a PowerPoint, he farted. He's running to the hills like a Philistine. Jihad hitting Hamites with the guillotine. Situation turned up with the ratchet team. JJ 7000 to the debate league. Yeah, I know them haters gon' hate me, but he won't debate me. Pistol off safety. He respond, come wake me. If I don't get up, nigga shake me. If he don't show up, then he fake G. I touch down and make these nigga nuts hate me. Dear brother. Balling and crawling all the way from H-Time. Let me get straight to the business. Man, them lions in the building. Why you lying to them children? Why you lying to them children? You gon' cry, you gon' get it. Me, I'm like a frog, nigga, ribbit. Of course, it's in the spirit. I just got the Porsche, she can steer it. Michael got the raw, Shaq and Willie. Lamborghini doors, you better not spill it. Mama's high, say I'm more than just a villain. Mama's cry, arms open wide for her children. Suicide, immortalized as the realest, yeah. Death by cop, black suicide. Let me get straight to the business. Got them lions in the building. Why you lying to them children? Why you lying to them children? RIGHTEOUS. Man, you know I've been in bed. Man, they know they no contest. Yahuwah, he do the best. Wow, what's that? Why didn't take it over? Number one debate league, you heard me? When it's up, it's stuck. I'm selling on everything, nigga. Metaphorically, of course.
Welcome to the Lion's Den. We have another presentation from our brother Just Us. You have a powerful topic, and it's kind of like an open discussion. So if you want to jump on the panel to discuss this topic with him, you're more than welcome. Please hit the like if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hope you enjoy the show.
Please definitely appreciate this for the Lions Den. Sister Paul for allowing this opportunity. Great opportunity here. Definitely have a wonderful topic. Brother JJ, definitely for having this platform. Sister Paul being a part of this platform. Everyone that definitely has played a role in this platform. The music, the introduction was wonderful. Those who are going to be listening, giving their open ears and their minds, which is topic is about resurrection of the mind. And pretty much that's all we got is our mind. When we really look at it, yeah, we do have a body that we physically do things with. But without the mind, the body don't actually move and animate and do things with it. And I definitely think it's a great opportunity for us to speak on stuff that we definitely have to deal with every day, which is our mind. One have to ask, what is the mind? How the mind came about, how we utilize the mind, what's the best way to utilize the mind. You know, Me looking at it, definitely mental peace is one of the things that comes up in my head. Mental peace is something that we definitely need to have in our life so that way we could be able to have the best body reaction, the best health of our body, so we could be able to carry through things and do things in our life where we feel good about ourselves. And always resurrecting your mind should definitely be a key point. What do I mean by resurrecting your mind? We all have done it, whether we know it or not, we resurrect all the time. Pretty much we resurrect every day. What I mean by that? Every time you wake up, you open your eyes, those signals, those five senses that you utilize, you take in new information. You have definitely developed a new part of thinking, a new way of seeing things in life. And your mind that you have died to the old way and resurrect to a new way of seeing things. We could definitely clearly say, hey, when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, I'm not that same person. When I was 13-year old, 14-year old, I'm not that same person. And so forth. As we age, we always resurrect our mind. And it's very important to know that. Why this is so important? Because most of the time we'll say, this is just how I am. There's no such thing unless one is dead to the fact that you can resurrect. Unless one is dead to the fact that you can resurrect. So it's a very dangerous statement to use to say, this is just who I am. Because when you was born, you never born that way. So you obviously could not be that person until some resurrection have happened to get you to that state of point of life. So our goal is to always try to expand ourselves, better ourselves, become better human beings. When I say human beings, I'm talking about being that we in the physical body. We all want least stress that this body could take so that we can live longer. So the goal is to prolong life. That's why we eat food to give energy and prolong our life. And of course, resurrecting our mind is a great way to do that. Because there's things that we're going to see in life that we notice that, hey, maybe if I get this information or I think a little better here, I could find ways where I could be a better person, have less stress. Maybe my finance, deal with my finance a little better. And there's times that we kind of look in the moment or sometimes think 3 years when I look at it like this, let's resurrect to retirement. 65, 67, 70 years old. Because at 70 years old, you cannot get no more Social Security benefit update. It stops right there. So let's look at ourselves where we see ourselves when we hit 70 years old. How do I position myself to be a better person dealing with even with Social Security? It takes your best 35 years of your life while you're working, and they give you the amount of Social Security money based on your best last 35 years. So now you knowing this information, how do I resurrect my mind and put myself in a position where I could be financially stable? Because we all know we live in a monetary system. So we got to be financially stable, mentally stable, physically stable, emotionally stable, and spiritually stable, which more dealing with the imagination of one thoughts. So it's always good to try to find a way to sit back, use the power of the imagination, and see yourself to the end, live in the end, so that end that you live in could be able to resurrect the present that you in now. So it's always great to do that. So it always good to resurrect your mind at every stage, every day. And definitely, if anyone have any questions towards it, if you choose to ask, it's always free for you to ask. because this is definitely a topic. Resurrecting your mind may be something new to some people. Some people may already know it. Some may have used techniques that work and do not work. But it's always important to know that you are not that person who you are today. And the goal is to become a better person tomorrow or a better person within that day. And always resurrect, always promote growth, always promote life, always promote energy, always promote less stress free, always promote a state of mind where you are at mental peace. So if if anyone definitely have any questions towards it, we always open to it. And I'm my just us. I'm always about the mind. Our goal to life really should be about our mind. Why do I say that? You got male and female physical bodies. Where do we look at these physical male and female bodies came from? They are the reflection of the brain, the left and right hemisphere, which is the neocortex. We're dealing with the rational mind. So, in order for us to understand our brains, we have a physical outside component to look at to get the understanding from a rational standpoint of view what our brain represents, which is the physical male and the physical female counterpart to understand the left hemisphere of the brain is dealing with the logic, which is the male. The right hemisphere is dealing with the feelings of it, which is the female part of it. And you always want to have logic to guide feelings, logic to guide feelings. Now, there may be times when common sense arises. And when common sense arises, feelings also could take place as well. So there's times when you see feelings will say, hey, well, hold up now. I know you all logic, but sometimes when it comes down to the emotional intelligence, common sense, we need to do this. That's why you'll see a female will go, no, he is the leader, but there's times she has to give him some tips on how to lead. And that's the times when you see the emotional take control, when there's an emotional intelligent part have to come. But most of the time you will see logic leading the feelings. Why? Because you could say, I feel I want to walk across the road. But logic could say, well, there's cars coming and you may not make it across the road. So let's wait till it's actually safe. So when logic and feelings work together, then the emotion is birth. When logic and feelings work together, then emotions is birth, meaning energy and motion, which came from the Latin word. Energy and motion, meaning you physically act out, yeah, logic and feeling working together and birthing an actual actions to give a result to it. So that's very important to understand these teachings on how this work because we gotta always study. We use the term know thyself. Most of us look at that know thyself. We look at a history. But what about us in the present? We, most of us may be suffering in the present, but yet we talk about how great our ancestor is, but how great we are today. Resurrection of the mind. We got to resurrect our mind and not always go to feel good moment stuff. Yes, our ancestors may have did some great things, but are those great things applied to us today? How do we apply those great defeats, those great actions that is in our bloodline in today's time? How do we become that great society or those great people, have those great attributes by resurrecting your mind, by knowing that you in a state that you're not at the best mental health, and mental health not meaning in a disease or anything like that. I'm just talking about you just not happy where you at in life when I say that. So you have to ask, where do I want to be in life? Using a thought of the imagination and actually seeing where you want to be and not just seeing it, feel it and live it to the end. So you see from the actual situation that you're living from and always have that focal point and watch the type of dialogue that you have inside your head. So as you living mentally the thoughts of your imagination and the dialogue that's being taking place that you imagine, you want to definitely consciously monitor those thoughts to make sure that you're not thinking but to the end of that state that you imagine. So that way, subconsciously, you're able to take in that information and move off of that. So that way you do not go astray. Again, you want to always imagine and monitor those thoughts in the head that once you imagine to create a new state of mind. So that way, those thoughts did not stray from that state of mind of imagination that you see yourself from the end that you did imagine. So that way, you could create this new state in the physical world presently where you want to be at. Now, are you directly creating it? No, you're tapping into that part that you don't understand. Most of us don't understand. We call it the subconscious mind. We're tapping into that where 90% of us move on the subconscious mind. But our goal is to consciously, neocortex, we're talking about rational brain, to consciously observe those thoughts, which dealing with memory, limbic system, midbrain, which symbolically we call subconscious. So we have to consciously monitor those memory that we put inside of us by the imagination that we picture and make sure that our inner dialogue matches the imagination where we want to see ourselves at from a subconscious state. So our body emotionally move on those thoughts of memory that we put inside ourselves. So it's very important to always align yourself with the thoughts that you imagine to be one, because those two have to walk together. If those two ain't walking together, it's going to be very difficult to manifest what you want. When I say those two, I'm talking about the conscious imagination that you see yourself to be and the subconscious dialogue that is going on inside your head of the memory of it. Because, of course, sometimes we scream, and be like, well, this is what I'm used to. I'm uncomfortable with this new thought. So those type of dialogue might start popping up, and you got to monitor to make sure that it only has a goal towards that new thought, that new imagination that was posted, that was actually seen from the ending part that where you want to see yourself to be. So you definitely want to be careful of that. And that's a form on the state of resurrecting your mind. Very, again, important topic. Resurrecting your mind. This is very good. Definitely appreciate that. I get to share this with some people so that way they too could be able to resurrect their mind. They too could be able to be better people, better person, better mothers, better fathers, better brothers, sisters, nephew, uncle, because we don't have to say, this is just who I am anymore. We don't have to say, this is just who I am anymore. But what we could say, I don't have to compromise. So we normally say that word as well too, especially during relationships and stuff. Oh, I'll compromise. No, you don't compromise. You become the person who you need to be in a better state of self mental. So where your mental could be at a good health when you're dealing with that person. If you know you meet someone, whether it's a relationship or not, because it could be just a friendship and this person likes certain things a certain way, compromisation also could lead to bad mental health because you still that person acting out a false reality. So, if you know you want to make a change, then you have to resurrect from the old way of thinking or looking at things. You die to that and resurrect to something new. So you're not compromising. And you also feel free in the heart and doing what's best to help that person and the way how they see things. And of course, it goes both ways. It is vice versa. So we definitely do not want to use the word compromise in our life because it does lead to a lot of negative things like heart attacks, stress, high blood pressure, a lot of health conditions. Let's just resurrect our mind and be the better version that we can be that do not have to involve compromising. And this is why resurrecting your mind is so important to our daily life. Not a one time thing, but our daily life. And there's times when we know we have to resurrect. There's times we know that we're not thinking right. There's times when people who tell us, hey man, that don't look right or that don't sound right. So there's times where we do have to make a change so we could be able to have a better environment around us so that way we don't have to worry about people having a negative energy towards us. So it's always good at all times to resurrect your mind to be a better person. Especially, I talked about this earlier. We definitely have to look at retirement. That's very important. Retirement. You know, hopefully no one is looking to live a short life. We are looking to live as long as possible. So our future is very important as well too, not just the present, because that's where the vision, imagination comes in. It's for the future of our future self. So it's very good to understand where do we see ourselves during the retirement age so we can align ourselves around the right people and doing the right things to better ourselves. And that's where resurrecting your mind will comes in place. So it's very good to look at where do I see myself? At least minimum 67. 67, I say to 70 years old, unless they make some changes. But 67 to 70 years old, unless they make some changes, so that way we could align ourselves in the right position versus going through life saying, oh, I wish I knew that, or I wish I thought that way. See, once you start thinking ahead of time, then we can start thinking of plans how to get there ahead of time. We can start meeting people who we need to talk to. We can start reading more books, doing some study, probably watching some YouTube, listening to some audiobooks, wherever it takes to resurrect that mind to get to that the imaginary state that we need to be in. So it's very important to be able to do that. If anyone definitely want to come up and share their thoughts, I'm definitely opening to that as well too. Another show that we can learn together. Yesterday. That's funny. I definitely appreciate that. I know what you say, brother Israel. But again, resurrecting your mind is so important. I know I cannot stop speaking on it because when one start to realize that, hey, this life is all about the imagination of what one want to think for it to be, then you're gonna realize all of your physical component of your reality is all determined on how you think within yourself. The power is truly is within you. We all talk about that. The powers is within you. That is true. What is this power that we really talking about? Our wonderful imagination. Our wonderful imagination. That's the power that we have. That's the power that we have where we can sit back and truly see the ending state where we want to be at. And then we can look at where we at now and resurrect to that ending state where we want to be at. And guess what happens next? We don't try to force the things to come into play, but because we decide to make a change of mind or resurrect your mind, the environment itself now will have to actually yield to you because you're not that same person anymore. You're the same flesh. The flesh don't go away, but that same mindset makes definitely a big change on how people see you, the outcome of how people view you. And again, you definitely got to monitor the thoughts that's going in your head because you don't want to say, okay, I want a brand new car. Let's say I want a Mercedes. You decide to see this imagination vision of this Mercedes. You see yourself driving the Mercedes, owning the Mercedes. You feel yourself sitting in the Mercedes. You actually seeing it. You're not looking at it. but you're looking from it. So you actually in the ending part of that part. Now, after that imagination is set and done and become a part of your being, part of your emotions, meaning you're going to act out the actual action on moving towards it, whether you got to lose some friends, whether you got to lose some ways of how you think to resurrect your mind and to becoming a better person or being a better position, then you will just help to do that. And seeing that Mercedes and actually knowing that you are the owner of that Mercedes car, the inner conversation starts to pop up most of the time. Oh, you can't afford that. Oh, come on, man. That Mercedes kind of, oh, come on. You barely making the payments on the car you got now. You probably even got a car. So all these little here and there conversation starts to pop up. So this is why it's so important to monitor that inner voice, which now dealing with the subconscious, which is symbolic word that deals with the limbic system, that deals with the memory, which is the hippocampus of the brain, right? That's what stores the memory. And where these memory comes from? These memory come from the past experience. And most of the times we may hear some negative stuff that, you know what, you're not worth that. You can't do this, you can't do that. There's a lot of negative stuff that we do hear. So guess what? This same negative stuff actually built a personality, and this personality built a personal world. And because it built that personal world and our personal state, you're trying to create a new world or a new state through this imagination, the power of the imagination with the conscious mind, which is dealing with the neocortex. So now you got to make sure you monitor those thoughts to say, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. You go back into that imagination state. You go back into that feeling of that emotion that you experience to make sure that that state that is trying to pull you down, that's in you. So the battle is always within inside you. So that way you can get yourself back into that state of imagination. So where you could be able to put your mind and those words and those battles that go on inside you, those dialogues that go inside you, go back and say, I'm getting this car. I'm gonna do this. I even see myself that I already have it. I'm already there. So that way it doesn't have a conflict because like we have heard some sayings, can't two can two walk together. When I say two should walk together, we talking about the imagination and the inner battle or that inner conversation that's going on. So you always have three situation going on. The physical action, which is dealing with the emotion, is the image of the inner dialogue. The inner dialogue is the image of the imagination. So the way you see you act or another person act is most likely their inner dialogue on how they look at the life, how they observe life. So you see if a person acting like, oh, life is just tough, their inner dialogue always putting them down and it's just tough. Then the inner dialogue also having imagination thoughts of things that are just tough. So you definitely have to have a change of state of conscious of how you see things, which we have also heard say people, with lack of vision, no vision will perish, right? That still goes back to imagination, right? So I'm not going to quote things exactly as it is because I'm not trying to be specific on anything. I'm just trying to keep this in an open flow. That way we stick on resurrection of the mind, resurrection of the mind, which is one of the key functions we use is the power of the imagination. Very powerful tool. If you do not use it, I I beg you, let's get into the imagination. Let's get into the imagination. If you have ever noticed, life just ain't going the way that you want to see it go. You just ever notice how life is just difficult. Sometimes things just don't work out the way you hope for it to work out. You have done many things. You might have prayed. You might have, asked for help. You might have taken certain steps that you know you need to take. I'm telling you, let's start taking a step of the imagination. Let's sit back Whatever you decide you want to do in life or where you see yourself at, sit back, take some time out, even if life is busy, even if 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and imagine that you're actually there. Feel how that state would feel. How do that actually state would feel if you were actually was there? So that way you can gain that experience. And the reason you gain that experience, now you know there's a possibility for it to happen. So it's difficult to get into certain things when you feel like it's not even possible. But if you could sit back and see it, have that envision, you could imagine it and get the feeling of the imagination that it actually is happening. So now you know that possibility is there where the subconscious mind can hopefully get out of the negative thinking towards it and get into the possible thinking of it. So it could definitely create a world that you actually imagine. I can look at power of the imagination. God, mind. I totally agree with that. And again, if anyone definitely want to come up and have some words to say towards it, the link is there. I definitely would appreciate to hear others what their thoughts is on the power of the imagination and the resurrection of the mind, because this is definitely something that we should practice every day. Matter of fact, brothers and sisters, we do this every day. I'm gonna say it again. We do this every day. I'm not saying nothing that we don't already do. But some of us do it subconsciously, below conscious, don't even realize we're doing it. And some of us, which is a very small portion, do it consciously. So the goal is to consciously do it. If you want something to change in your life, you consciously imagine a change that you want. Because you can't just say, I just want to change. I mean, you could say it, but it just may not work. But if you truly want the change, you have to ask yourself, how do you see the change and its ending results? Let's not complain about the change. Let's not quarrel about the change. How do you want the change to be and its ending results? Not the process, but the ending results. Then you sit back, you imagine it. How would the ending be? How would it feel to be in the actual ending? And put your emotions inside it, your energy. So when we talk about now, we're connecting energy to it. So you can animate that, the animation of it. So that way you can physically be able to see that actually come true. And this is something that we definitely have to do is look at the ending of things, how we want it to be. So we are in a dialogue could speak on the positive ending on how it should be. So let's say you are a job and you have noticed that your manager is giving you a hard time and you're trying to figure out how to get a more stressful day at work. Most of us, what we do, we pretty much tell our manager how we feel inside our mind. We have this big conversation that's very negative, but yet we wonder why this hard time continue going. So we really do not want to have a bad dialogue in our head about our manager. What we truly really want is our peace with our manager. So guess what we do? What we truly really want? We need to create an imagination state of a dialogue that we have peace with the manager. And being that you can imagine how you and the manager is getting along, now the dialogue in your head also is speaking positive on this getting along. Then the energy that you have, right, which is energy emotion, expresses that vibe of getting along as well too. And most likely it gets along in the physical world. So I'm gonna go through three of the components of on how the brain is structured. So you got the neocortex, which is on the top of the brain, right, with the left and right hemisphere. Then you got the limbic system, which is the midbrain. Then you got the reptilian brain or the brain stem, right, which is the lower part of the brain. So we definitely have to have the imagination, which is dealing with the neocortex. The neocortex, with the imagination, connects to the limbic system that also has a hippocampus, was there that stores memory based on what you imagine. And then you have the reptilian brain that deals with survival. That's what deals with actually living and striving on this earth. So whatever it may feel that's threatening it, it's going to do what it got to do to try to get rid of the threat, whether it goes into fight or flight situation. So you definitely want to put it in a state of imagination to where it doesn't even know if it's reality or not, but it feels like it is the reality. So it ain't feeling threatened, but it does feel this ending point that what you want that is more promising and more better for you. So that way it could be able to make things happen in the physical world. Now, there is no way or no actions that we could say we specifically take on let's do this, let's do that to make it happen. Why is that? Because the brain is such a complex organism that it figure ways out with you or without you consciously knowing. Things will just start popping up in your head. Oh, let me do this. Oh, let me do that. But see, it cannot do that. It cannot just pop up on its own unless you give it a direction to do that with, which is the imagination. Until you sit down, come up with an idea that you have a direction, like this is where I see, this is where I want to be at, this is where I can see the ending, and then it could go there to help guide you into where you want to be at. That's why logic, again, with the neocortex, more with the physical, mid system, the limbic system, I'm sorry, limbic system, which is the midbrain, dealing with feelings, but deal with more of the feminine, and which women normally do, help guide us in our ways to make sure we're doing things right as well, even though we got logic with it. So this is what this subconscious does. Whether if we realize the right ways to go or not, it helps guide us. And to understand again our brain better, we just look at us as human beings, the male and the female. We are the external functions of the brain. And when you talk about conscious, subconscious, these are the symbolic words to the actual brain. Like one also talk about the third eye. Pretty sure, okay, if you're having a hard time at work, try to ignore as much as possible. Keep your okay. So when Sister Noble said, "I'm having a hard time at work," try to ignore it. So I can agree with the sister partially. The reason why I'm saying that is because having a hard time at work, the best thing to do is to see the ending result, what you want to see. So if having a hard time at work means that somebody, I don't know, maybe bothering you, somebody's getting on your nerve. So now you sit back and you
We can't
ask,
hear you. Something happened. I think your phone or something through your connection off.
oh, you get me now?
Everybody,
You get me now? You get me now?
nope, I can't hear you.
Okay, hello. You get me now? You
Oh,
get me now?
here. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, cool.
It
Yeah.
was it was probably me. I don't know.
Oh, no. That's all right. Yeah. So I was mentioning when I so Sister Nova was talking about her job, just ignore the situation. Yeah, at a point I can agree to that, but even to help it even better by besides ignoring it, you also could sit back and look at the ending point where you want your situation to be. So where it is a healthy situation for you. So if a person is just getting on your nerve, then you imagine them not getting on your nerve. Imagine how you want it to actually be. So when you imagine how you actually want it to be, because you and that person is partaking in that situation. So you have to fix yourself first. You have to resurrect first in order for that situation itself to also to get better. So just ignoring it, what I call is compromising.
which is no good because now you stressed. Now you may have some health issue that you're creating on yourself. So it's best to say, let me see how could I resurrect and become a person as a problem solver. And there's times when this person just may not want to fix anything. That's fine. They may not want to fix it. But if you also continue the imagination, who to say what's going to happen? But you still have to definitely deal with yourself first. No matter what that person does, you got to have the active power of your own self. Keep yourself in a good health before anyone else ruin your own health. So I definitely would agree with the sister on ignoring, but also to add to that is to make sure that you keep yourself in the right healthy mind so you don't make mistakes. You don't miss and do things that you shouldn't be doing at the place because you pissed off, even though you're silent. It happens. We all have things that we got to deal with at work, but we got to definitely at all times resurrect for the betterment of the physical body. You have to resurrect for the betterment of the physical body. And the reason why I'm saying the betterment of the physical body, because you got to have good mental health so that way you could be able to have less stress and last longer on earth. So if anyone definitely again want to come up and we have a conversation, we could chat, that'd be great. Let me look at the call fact, holy sister queen noble. Okay. So I look at it like this here too. Food, right? When you look up the word food and with the purpose of food's supposed to promote energy and life. Energy and life. No matter how we look at it, if it ain't giving you energy, we may have to revisit it, but it is what it is. And promote life, meaning it's sustaining you on the physical world. That's the same thing when we now dealing with the mind, when we dealing with the human body, when we dealing with ourselves. So whatever we imagine, whatever we choose to do, and this imagination does not have no one way to go. It's wherever you imagine is where it takes you. But of course, we want to definitely, I love it in screen for years. It took me toll on my mental health. These days, I work hard the money and stress and things that I've ever been. Right, I totally again, totally again would agree with Sister Noble is saying. But again, by the imagination, where do we want to see ourselves to be? How do we want to see ourselves feeling? Do we sit down, take some time to imagine our end result on where we like to be at? Because there's times when I get, myself, I've gotten upset and I start realizing that the only person that could get me upset is me. I've gotten stressed as well. And I had to realize the only person that could get me stressed is me. So I had to go to my wonderful imagination and sit down and say, well, this is where I want to be at. And see, the thing is, when I'm saying imagination, I'm not talking about you just sit down and say, oh, just imagine this and that's it. No, we talking about all of the being, the energy inside you. There is no way other than this way. And this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm feeling. This is my emotion. You attach everything to it. You are that. You become that. It is done already. It's not going to be done. It is done. So as far as you're concerned, it's already done. Now your goal is just to receive. So I like to imagine a couple $1 million in my checking account. But who to say you can't get it? Now, the only thing is the receiving part is in place. You still got to receive it. You still got to position yourself to receive it. And I show we all got a million ideas. I show anyone who have a thinking mind have ideas where they could do that. but are they willing to be in the receiving action? Are they willing to prepare themselves? Are they willing to put in the work? Are they willing to do that? So it's not the fact of what you like to have, it's a fact of are you willing to receive it? Because we all are in the information age. We all have this wonderful, wonderful YouTube, this wonderful Google where we could just look up information, create a product. Imagine the product that you create, look up a set price that will make sense as far as the audience, as far as the customers will buy it, and see how much I could get to be able to purchase at time. So we have the way to do it, but are we going to put ourselves in that ending point to receive it? Are we going to put in that extra energy? All praises to the Most High, Holy Sister. Oh, that's great. Good boy. Right. Are we going to actually do it? And sometimes we doubt ourselves. I've done it many times with myself. I've doubt myself. And then there's times I say, this is no other way. And it actually have came to pass. Have I ever thought about having $1 million? No. I mean, if anything, I think about wealth versus having $1 million. And if wealth consists of the $1 million, that's great. And of course, am I working towards it and receiving? Yes, I am working towards that. Do I see it happen? Yes, definitely. I've seen it happen. Sometimes the state we in also is very difficult, meaning our environment is very difficult as well too, to actually try to get our mind right. So again, if the environment you in is very poor, it's very good to get into a better environment to try to get your mind to where you need to be at. And then you got to look at it like this too. The chair we in, the computer we on, the phone we have, all of that came from the imagination. Those stuff just poof or the thin air. Someone sat down and imagined that before they actually brought that to the physical world. So what I'm saying is not something that I'm just creating. This is something that's happening in today's time. Anything that we actually have to better our life, the house we're in, someone sat down and imagined and then jotted the plans. It starts with the imagination. So this is a non-tangible tool that is used to build the tangible. Is a non-tangible tool that is used to build the tangible. Again, for this house to be built, plans had to be drawn, right? So the house being built is the physical action of the body. Plans had to be drawn is the inner conversation, because you had to do a lot of thinking on drawing the plans. And actually getting the inner conversation deals with the imagination. So those plans that you thought about to be drawn, you first had to imagine. One had to bring a thought first to imagine on how they want those plans to be drawn. And that's why I say the image of the inner thoughts is the action. The image of the imagination will be the inner thoughts. So it always go back to imagination. The imagination is the image. Imagine is the image of the inner thoughts. The inner thoughts is the image of the action. That's what I meant to say. So always go back to imagination. No matter how it sounds to us, we cannot tell ourselves there's something that we got physically without the imagination being played. Even if one, which I'm not trying to go there, but I'm going to touch on it, want to go, spiritual or to the scripture, right? It's a God, we made in God's image, which is the root word of imagination. Because when you're dealing with imagination, you must have an image. And again, remember, we also have to look at, when we say conscious is a symbolic word to the neocortex. Subconscious is a symbolic word to the limbic system. Then when you're talking about the imagination, you're talking about the third, I want to say the third eye as well, right? The third eye And actually is a part of the brain as well too, the visual cortex. So anytime when one want to think about something, we always got to look where it correspond to the physical body. It always go back to you, and that's where the know thyself comes in place. So when you say someone talks about the third eye or talks about the imagination, now you're talking about the physical component, which is in the back of the head. It's called the visual cortex. The visual cortex. That's what allows you to dream. It allows you to imagine. It allows you to see visions. That's the part that does that. So this is all also tangible stuff. So we're talking about the non-tangible corresponding with the tangible. This is just not something you just say. I always like to correspond back to the physical human being because it is dealing with us as well. Because at the ending of the day, again, the goal is to keep the body less stress-free and keep the body living at peace as long as it could in the physical world. Everything we do, all the knowledge we gain, we definitely should take care of the physical body so we can live as best as we can in the physical world for as long as we can at good health. That's the end goal to that there. All the knowledge you talk about, you got to keep this body in good health. Because when this body expires, we don't know. No one has physically died for days. I'm talking about the doctor pronounced them dead, not someone said they halfway died and stuff like that. We talking about the doctor pronounced them dead. They got embalmed and they went down in that ground and came back and started talking about. We held on things like that. And I'm not knocking anyone who believes in that, but I'm talking about those who actually got embalmed, actually got those chemicals stuff up in their body. They dead, they finished, they ain't coming back. And and say, well, here I came back from I haven't seen it happen in that manner. I've heard other things happen, but technically there wasn't dead. So my thing is we try to keep this physical body in the best condition, the best working condition as possible. And one of the ways to do that is with the wonderful imagination. Finding ways how we want to see ourselves to be, how we want to resurrect our mind to be that person, because that mind have a personality. That personality creates your personal world. That mind is that personality. That personality creates your personal world. And that's why it's very important to always resurrect your mind. Well, I agree with that. With the brother, what Israel said, definitely agree with that. There, you got my number. Yeah. So again, resurrection of the mind is definitely important. Now, is there another type of resurrection? I don't know. I don't know no one who have those other ones. I'm not going to even get into that, but I do know we can resurrect our mind. That's no shadow of a doubt. We definitely can resurrect our mind. And we definitely need to practice it every day. Every day. Every day. Every day. Even if you have to sit down, stand up, walk around, and tell yourself, let's resurrect this mind. Let's resurrect this mind. What am I going to do to improve myself today? Matter of fact, I do want to live 70 years old or older. How am I going to retire? Am I budgeting? What type of budget plan do I have in place? How am I spending my funds? How am I gaining my funds? Am I around the right people? Am I expanding my mind every day to resurrect into a new being? How do I gain more people around me to help expand my mind? And then sometimes you lose people, those who do not want to resurrect. Not everyone's going to resurrect with you. There's some who's going to resurrect with you. And definitely if you could take those along with you, those who see the vision, who see the imagination, where y'all all could resurrect, that would be great. And the mind definitely is the most powerful thing that we have as a human being. Matter of fact, the mind really is the only thing on who you are. Because without the mind, you're really in here. You're just a shell. So you definitely want to always resurrect your mind to help peace among yourself, peace among others, peace among your family, and definitely keep yourself as stress free as possible to live a life where you can live very long, longevity, not, having certain disease. I mean, some of us do have it out there. It is what it is, but the more peace we can have, the better we'll actually live much longer and do things that we need to do in life. So this definitely is something hopefully y'all guys could take along with y'all and keep it as a tool, the imagination. We already got it, but let's start utilizing it. Resurrect my mind. How am I, you know what, before you go to sleep, how did I resurrect my mind today? Or when you wake up, how am I going to resurrect my mind today? Because I need to resurrect. Because it's very important to do that. Resurrection is definitely a part of life. Resurrection is definitely a part of life. But are we going to resurrect where there's something positive? Sometimes we resurrect where there's something negative. See, resurrection don't always mean it's positive, because we resurrect regardless, but we want to intentionally do it, consciously do it, be consciously aware of doing it. So that way, when a resurrection happens, you know that a resurrection is going to occur, especially when you sit back, lay back, stand around, walk around, however you decide to do it, and imagine the resurrection state that you want to be in. The power of the imagination, very important too, for the resurrection of the mind. I think I'm gonna stop there, Sister Paul. Just unless somebody else probably wanna come up or had any questions. I'm gonna leave it there for now. There, I won't do it too long. Say, walk not by sight, but the behavior, the mind. And I totally agree with that. So when you say walk not by sight, you got two physical eyes. And those physical eyes are showing you somebody else resurrection thoughts. But the mind that you have, which you have one eye, which dealing with the visual cortex, that you can see the thoughts that you want to manifest in the physical world. And you use that to be able to bring your reality here. Yeah, it's not one problem. So you always want to be able to use your one sight that you have, the visual cortex, to be able to create the reality that you want in the physical world. That's very important. Some may call it the third eye, which is fine. Again, symbolic. And that's the next thing. We got to know that these words are symbolic words, meaning that they don't exist. They just descriptions of something of the physical human being. It's just a description of the physical human being. And sometimes you will have physical stuff that do exist to express the human brain. Like I talk about the male and the female. We're out here to express the human brain, which is the left and right hemisphere. We out here to express that, to show how it works. So if you see a person moving all logical, you know the left brain is more at work. Person moving just in the feelings, then you know the right brain is work. Also, you got the 7-year cycle. There's a 7-year cycle as well too, that you got to look at that corresponds to the brain. You got the first that deals with the reptilian brain that deals with the survival, the first 7 to 8 years, that just takes in information because it's at a lower um, frequency, and you building your character this way. So this first 7 to 8 years builds a person character on who they most likely going to be. And this is why that reptilian brain slash brainstem deals with the survival part, which is your personality on how you're going to view life to be. Then you have the next one, which is 7 to 14, 15 years old. You got dealing with the limbic system, which is the midbrain, and that deals with the feeling slash emotion part of the person. Then you got the next 7 year cycle that dealing with age 14 to 21 or 22, and that deals with the rational part of the brain development. Now you're dealing with the right and left hemisphere of it, and that also makes you think about, okay, how did I feel during this age? What did I take it on building my character building, and how do I rationalize all of this at the same time? So it's very important to know that these stages are there, because when you do self-observation, especially when you want to date someone, always do self-observation first. Most of us talk about venting. You always vent yourself first. The first venting is done is self-venting. You don't vent no one outside of you first. You vent yourself first, just in case your head ain't no good. You don't go venting people wondering what's going on with them. You vent, make sure your head good first. So that way you can have a rational, emotional, intelligent decision making when you're dealing with people. So you're fair with them. And most of the time, when we vent ourselves, we don't go by how we think things are. We go by, hey, let me go talk to mom, pops, let me go talk to brother, uncle, the older people in the family, and ask them why I think this way. And especially when you hear other people talk about you, telling you how you are, whether you're mean, you selfish, whatever the case may be, you don't brush it off. Because most of the time, it is what it is. And you got to do self-venting and make some corrections. And don't say, this is just who I am. Because no one born with a personality. We gain personality throughout our life. So we can resurrect our mind and become better people. So our self-venting is very important to do towards ourselves. And a lot of times we have little traumas and we have certain situations going on. And there's some things we do notice that we do. So if we notice it, let's not just say this who we are. We could resurrect from that. We could definitely resurrect from that. And resurrection definitely brings freedom to that dead state of mind of thinking. We do not want to be in a dead state of mind thinking. We want to resurrect and be free. We want to free our minds. Free our minds, meaning that you could resurrect and make a change in your thought pattern. That's what it means to have a free mind. You could be able to consciously make a change in a thought pattern on how you used to think. Those memories that's in the hippocampus, you could bring on new conscious thoughts. So those memories don't keep you trapped and keep you in that same cycle. That's why, some might have watched The Matrix. They talk about that cycle. That's the same thing talking about, that subconscious cycle. Whereas you're so used to doing a certain thing that it's a cycle that you keep doing. And the goal is to consciously make a change from that cycle that you kept doing into a new resurrection situation that you imagine, because the imagination takes time to build that world, that what you see yourself in now, and bring that into the physical present world, so you can have a better state of mind and resurrect your mind. All right, so I would now. All right, Sister Paul, I'm gonna end it there. And unless somebody else has something to say or want to come up.
Alrighty.
Definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, that was a lot of information out there. So y'all take heed. If you caught the end of it, please rewind it, and you know, you can leave a comment on your intake or how you feel about some of the information that he brought out.
And if anybody want to talk on it later, I'm definitely willing, to come back and have a discussion because some of people have questions.
That's right.
All right. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
I'll praise you, Most High. Yeah, that sound good, y'all. Hello. What we doing?
Hey, cook that up, Khalid.
We still getting to the money, got these haters in they field. Lil' homie, let them chill. Most I told me, vengeance hit my enemies, my footstools. We ain't got no beef for real. This here, this how we live. Look here, homie, we still getting to the money, got these haters in they field. Lil' homie, let them chill. Most I told me, vengeance hit my enemies, my footstools. We ain't got no beef for real. This here, this how we live. Look here, homie, be still. They said you got the call, they trying to blackball you. Like what they own, bro. You can't blackball a boss. The whole world, they hate this right here. The way you hate your neighbor, might as well pull the trigger on yourself. You know we get excited by the smoke. Every day we casting flesh. Say my treasure stored in heaven, we gon' blow the rest. They disrespected and we check. The bank that causing kept it still. They asking others about my business, but I ain't got no instant miss. See, I still deal with ox direct. Cause your person don't mean you respect. Your outlet don't get no credit if the ox ain't in it. Money answer all things and you got all these questions. Playing Vic. Look, I employ slavery. If you broke, just say it. Yo, them crews in the hood, Jews in the hood. I caught them clues, now I'm good. I broke it down, he understood my all to you. Filtered through, you found a few, I'm good. We what we sold, this here exclusive. They like, hey, folk, look what you doing. We still getting to the money, got these haters in they field. Lil' homie, let them chill. Most I told me, vengeance hit my enemies, my footstools. We ain't got no beef for real. This here, this how we live. Look here, homie, we still getting to the money, got these haters in they field. Lil' homie, let them chill. Most I told me, vengeance hit my enemies, my footstools. We ain't got no beef for real. This here, this how we live. Look here, homie, be still. Most I told me, be still, give a room to work. Know my movie work. Your faith ain't good, don't put the work in. In the spirit flexing, that my day job. Getting the mode out my own, I don't know what they are. Before I got the blueprint, and I'm too legit to quit. Let it spark in the dark, be a light, got it lit. Trying to map my movement, got my haters pondering. The odds set the question there, they wanna know if you still lit. It hit different, you authentic, a lot of odds pretending. We do it for the Lord, got my own motion, who are you to judge? The most high first, none above. Tap in the spirit, we locked in, they'll come against your plot. You know Judas said, yeah, we spit them scripts, they barely not. Came on slave ships, then you not blind. You know they tell you everything. Isaiah 30:20, yeah, we bad. You see what happened when they tried to rail that train up off the track. False witness, hypocrite. We throw shots back, now they feel heat. Must go get it. We still getting to the money, got these haters in they field. Lil' homie, let them chill. Most I told me, vengeance hit my enemies, my footstools. We ain't got no beef for real. This here, this how we live. Look here, homie, we still getting to the money, got these haters in they field. Lil' homie, let them chill. Most I told me, vengeance hit my enemies, my footstools. We ain't got no beef for real. This here, this how we live. Look here, homie, be still.